Okay, hello Rachel. It's a pleasure to welcome you to one of our first interviews for the Inclusive Practice and Special Education Needs SIG from IATEFL. So the objective of our chat today is going to be a double interview. So Rachel will be asking me some questions of her choice, and then I'll be asking Rachel questions which have come from members of the Inclusive Practice and Special Education Needs SIG. So more ado, over to you, Rachel.
Hi, Rachel. So this is confusing, isn't it? All of these Rachels. So I wanted to ask you some questions, Rachel, about the Inclusive Practices and Special Educational Needs SIG. As you said, there are quite a lot of initials there. So can you tell us a little bit about, what exactly that means? What is inclusive practices? Just, a little bit of background, perhaps, to the SIG.
Of course, yes. So we're actually IATEFL's newest SIG. We were founded in 2016. Originally, there was a special education needs branch in the Young Learners and Teens SIG of IATEFL. But we and many other people felt and believe that, of course, special educational needs are not just for young learners. If you have a special education needs, then it will probably follow you all your life. And also, I think we're now more looking at inclusive practices rather than special education needs. So I'll just explain the difference between the two. From a special education needs or a specific learning difference or a specific learning difficulty point of view, a person will be maybe assessed to find out if they have signs of dyslexia, inattention, etc. And it's more a fixing something wrong with somebody point of view. Whereas inclusive practices is much more global. And it takes on the idea that we are all very diverse, be it neurodiverse, but also origin, also sexuality, also many other things that will have an aspect in the classroom, because we want all these people to be included in the classroom. So whether a SEN point of view would be to try and put things in place to help specific difficulties, inclusive practices will be having a classroom where everybody feels comfortable and things are put into place which will suit everybody in the classroom. And
so do you see that as a, sorry, I'm talking over you, but do you see that then as a kind of shifting more from SEN towards inclusive practices, or is it sort of two sides of the same coin? What's your take on that?
I think there's a link, and there always will be a place for both aspects, but I think there is more a shift to inclusive practices now, and that's certainly what we wanted to echo and to reflect in the name that we chose for our special interest group, that we chose on purpose, not just to call it special education needs, because the area is so much more vast today.
And what would you say was the aim of the IPENSEN? How do you normally refer to this? This is a good question, because I always call it the IPENSEN SIG, but when you've got that, how would you prefer it to be referred to?
We often call it IPENSEN. We like our and to show that there's the two parts, so we often call it IPENSEN, but otherwise we call it the Inclusive Practice and SEN SIG. Right. Because we like the emphasis on inclusive practices, but yes, we will be IPENSEN.
Okay.
Yes.
Good to know. Yes. So tell me a bit more about sort of what the aim is. I mean, you've talked quite a lot about teachers in the classroom. Is it just for teachers, or is there a broader brief than that?
There's broader, but obviously as part of the IATEFL group, we are aimed mainly at English language teachers. But I know in my job, I'm helping teachers of many different subjects. And also another thing we do is we suggest resources and tips to help people organising conferences or webinars, things like that. Are they also inclusive practices? Because we forget also that English teachers may have specific needs, be they visual, be they whatever. So that needs to be taken into account as well. But mainly the things we put into place for our members. So we have a very good website with lots of resources on it. We're lucky to have a brilliant webmaster. We have a brilliant team, all of them. Our webmaster has make sure our website is up to date. We have lots of resources. We share a lot of information also from other associations on social media. We publish a biannual newsletter with articles on a variety of subjects. So our last newsletter was on the subject of identity in the classroom and how different identities are represented. We have a monthly tweet chat, which is on the first Monday of every month at 6 p.m. Central European time, where we usually have a poll on social media a few days before, and then we choose what we're going to chat about. And so that's a live chat on the Monday, and then people often add to it during the week that follows. We also have a mentor scheme whereby any member can apply to have a mentor. So often they will email us with their specifics, maybe talk about the kind of students they have, that kind of thing. And then we'll put them in touch with somebody on the committee, or we have a stable of mentors waiting with different specialities, and we put them in touch as well. And the last thing we've put into place is our book club. So we stole your idea. And we're going to have a book club, and the next meeting is on Saturday the 16th, where we'll be talking about a book on identity in language. Yeah, that'll be a Zoom session, and we've got the author of the book coming. So we're very excited about that. Yes, so all the details are on our social media sites.
Fantastic.
So, yeah, lots of stuff.
Well, I can attest to this because I joined IPENSEN, there you go, I can pronounce it now, a year ago, because I kind of noticed, that there was quite a lot happening in that SIG. So I can definitely recommend, joining the SIG, because I think some SIGs are more active than others, aren't they? And yours is definitely, I would say, one of the more active ones. So why did you personally join? And now you've joined the committee as well. So tell us a bit about that too.
So I joined at the beginning. Actually, I was giving a talk on helping students with dyslexia, I think, at IATEFL when I think it was Harrogate, or maybe later, when I found out about the SIG. And I immediately wanted to join because I feel that every teacher of English is a teacher of special education needs. All our students, whether it be one-to-one or in a group, but all our students have different learning needs. And I think it's so important to make our students feel comfortable. I think there's an overlap as well with some of the things you talk about as well, because I think student well-being is so important. I don't think you can learn if you're not comfortable and at ease, and if you don't feel safe in your classroom. And I think that having an inclusive practice classroom is a major part of that for many students. I see a lot of my students. So I teach 12 to 18-year-olds, and I see a lot of them. I see when they're not happy, when things are not right in their lives, etc. And I see the effect it has on their learning. And I think, like all my colleagues, we all want to be the best teacher we can for our students.
No, I totally agree. I think there definitely is crossover, because it's about working with the students as individuals, as people, and what they need, in order to be able to get the most out of the classes, etc. So yeah, totally agree. And tell us a bit about your new role though on the committee and what that involves.
So we were very sad we haven't lost Anne Margaret Smith, our previous coordinator, but she has moved definitely into the background because she's continuing her studies. So she stepped down during our conference this June.
Mm-hmm.
And myself and Gianni stood up as joint coordinators. So it's great to be working with somebody else. We are a great team, as I mentioned before, so I'm very lucky that I can really lean on the team. We both can, and we all work together. We're a very democratic team as well. So it's not as frightening as I thought it would be. And as I said, Anne Margaret is there to help us if we need. And the IATEFL office are brilliant. They're there to answer any questions. They're always there for us. So yeah, it's very interesting. And why did I do it? A, because I'm mad? No, because I think by getting involved in associations, you get more out of them.
Mm-hmm.
So just from a totally selfish point of view, I'm the one. I get all the resources that we use. I get access to all this. I'm often the first to see it. I get to read the newsletter before everybody else, and I get, as I said, I get to work with a great team. And I think the more you put into something, the more you get out of it.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And you mentioned that the book club coming up is something new. Do you have any other plans, you know, for the future for the SIG, things that are coming up that you could give us a sneak preview of?
We've got, so we're working on webinars that will start taking place probably from about November. So we'll have a series of webinars coming up. We're also working on our pre-conference event for next year. So I think I would be allowed to give you a little snippet to say that we'll be working with the Global Issues SIG for our pre-conference event. We're very happy about that. And we're hoping to continue our publishing as well. We were very lucky last year or the year before with Anne Margaret Smith to be able to publish this book jointly. So it's called Activities for Inclusive Language Teaching. And it's written by the committee members of the IPENSEN SIG and includes lots of brilliant ideas. We were very happy to do that, and we're looking to do something else like that again in the future.
Oh, that looks brilliant. So could you share, you know, a few ideas for or advice for teachers who want to make their classroom more inclusive? What would be some of your top tips?
So I think the most important thing, and you touched on this earlier, the most important thing is to take the time to get to know your students and to get to know how they learn and ask them. I think I'm very open in my classroom about everybody learns differently. So how do you learn? What would you like? What do you find easy? What do you find difficult? So for example, just today, I was doing revision of the end of chapter with one of my classes. And I'm lucky enough to have two whiteboards in my classroom. But anyway, on one side, I had just a list of things they had to revise. And I asked them to fill it in with notes. But on the other side, I did a mind map with the same titles, but the information placed differently. And then I asked the students which would they find most easiest to work with. And that way they can choose which version they want to complete. So just little things like that. And I think also giving students a choice often will help. Would you prefer to write an essay on this subject, or would you prefer to give an oral presentation? Yeah,
so just really quite simple kind of tweaks can really, you know, make quite a big difference. Definitely. You say?
Yes, and getting the students on board, getting them involved in their learning. I think that gives them a sense of autonomy and gives them a sense of power as well.
And finally, I mean, you know, I'm coming at this from the perspective of a materials writer. Would you have any tips in terms of materials to help with inclusive practices?
I definitely try not to overload them. I don't use many worksheets, but I do use worksheets definitely as opposed to them copying things off the board. We're lucky with English as a language to be teaching, really, because it's not like there's a lot of grammar, a lot of verb endings, things like that. So there's not a lot of tables and things to learn. So I do keep my worksheets very open, very airy. I use a very simple font. So I use Comic Sans S, which apparently you're not ever supposed to use unless you're a unicorn or something. But anyway, my students are used to it. I have noticed actually not all students are happy with the Open Dyslexic font. Not necessarily that easy, but just a simple font, quite big. And to avoid, I try to avoid black on white. But the easiest way I've got for that is by using recycled paper. It's not as white. It's a bit of a duller color. So things like that. And we do use the textbook, but not that often. And what I have for my students who want it is I have a simple piece of cardboard with an envelope size square in the middle, and they can just place that on their book. So they're only looking at the picture we're looking at, or the
line of, yeah,
exactly, yes. So just things like that. Okay.
Well, thank you very much for that. And I'm sure that, you know, within the SIG there would be huge number more sort of these kinds of tips and help and support.
There are, and it's all on the website, and there's lots of webinars already on the website as well. Great, thank you. So my turn now. Just before I start asking you your questions, I'd just like to remind everybody that if you would like to see the questions and Rachel's answers to the questions I'll be asking her, then they are for our members only. So please go onto our website or onto IATEFL to find where you can see the rest of the interview. Thank you.